with Jamie from the White Rabbits.
Hi.
Hey, Jamie. Saw you were playing the beanbag game upstairs.
Yes.
Any reaction to that?
It's the first time we've ever come across it, and it was love at first sight.
Yeah, you don't even have, people don't play that game like the real life version?
No, the closest thing I played is washers, where you pitch like a metal washer into like a tin can, distance apart from each other.
Alright, so pretty similar.
Similar, yes.
How'd you do at the
I didn't do so well in the second round. First round I won.
Well,
but my opponent was playing for the first time too, so.
Congratulations,
nonetheless.
Oh,
thank you.
Right, you guys are on TBD Records,
yes.
The formerly Side One Recordings, along with Radiohead. How'd you guys get hooked up with them? How'd that happen?
It's been kind of in the works for about a year. Phil Costello, who runs that label, we met him actually in Chicago at Lollapalooza last summer. Just kind of discovered that half the band actually grew up in St. Louis, in a community in St. Louis called Webster Groves, and Phil is actually from Webster Groves too. So we had all these very odd connections, and I think that was kind of like the start of our relationship, finding that we had these very kind of like similar upbringings and outlooks on, I don't know, just the Midwestern mentality, and he was just a big fan of the band, and just kind of grew from there, and met a few times when we were out on the West Coast, and he'd come out to the East Coast and see us, and then I guess we finally kind of pulled the trigger on it, so to speak, about a few weeks ago, really, about a month or so ago.
Happy with the decision so far?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It was, we waited, I think, a long time just to see kind of what surfaced after touring for about a year straight, and we couldn't ask for kind of a better person to, hook up with.
And you guys you've been touring a lot for the past year or so.
Yeah.
Have you guys had time to work on anything new?
A little bit. When we're home, we usually, the longest stretch we ever get is like 3 weeks maybe. That was one time that we had a 3-week stretch, and we try and make it a point when we have anywhere from like a couple weeks off to 3 weeks off that we'll sit down and try and bang out a song, because it just really helps when you're playing, material that's a year old, and it's not that we're tired of the material, but when you're playing live, it always helps to have like some fresh material to kind of keep you sane and work towards something.
And you guys had been living together, but you're not anymore.
Yeah, we lived together for about 2 years in a loft in Brooklyn, and about December of this past year we moved out.
Do you find that makes it easier or harder to get together and actually work on music?
I think we learned a lot by living together. It kept us really focused and really driven, and I think we were able to kind of maintain that once we weren't all living together. I think it's been more healthy. It's been a healthier move for everybody to just have some personal space now, and actually the songs that we've written recently have come a lot faster than when we were all living kind of on top of each other. And I think that's just a product of getting used to living in New York and living together, and then now it's just kind of more of a natural progress.
Yeah. Let me just make sure. You guys have been you've been being documented since the summer of 2007 by Andrew Palermo, and it says that all facets of band life are being covered, from writing and recording to playing live and touring. And there's a trailer up on your website. How's that been?
Andrew's a good friend of ours. He's friends with a couple guys in the band. They grew up together. And he kind of just came out with us on a whim. We actually picked him up in Columbia, Missouri, which is where the band actually began. And just took him out to Colorado with us on this little swing that we had about a year ago, and I think that's where kind of the initial seeds were sown for the idea of just kind of documenting more of what we were doing. And now he's actually living with a couple guys in the band in New York, and he's out there with us now, and we're just kind of, he's just kind of around and just kind of like captures what we're going through. And I don't think we really have a clear idea of what it is just yet, but he's an incredibly talented filmmaker, and we get to see some of the footage and figure out something to do with it eventually.
Do you have any like live band music, documentary movie type things, like Wilco had one a few years ago.
Sure.
Are there any that you particularly like?
Well, I mean that's certainly good. Certainly a good one. I don't know. I mean, this like Don't Look Back in Anger, the Dylan documentary. I don't know. I mean, I always find it really interesting. I think that the big struggle that we have is that it seems like I think a lot of bands have the struggle when just writing music. Like it seems like everything's been done before, and the Sigur Rós documentary that came out recently was like a really interesting film. It was less about the band's struggles and more just about image and sound. And I think trying to find a way to kind of bridge the gap between documenting what we do and kind of taper it a little bit with kind of the imagery of just being on the road all the time.
Yeah. And you guys also played Letterman?
We did.
Other bands have said that it's extremely cold in that studio. Is that true?
Sure. It was probably in the low 50s when we were there. You could see your breath when we were rehearsing in the early afternoon before the show actually tapes. So it's not a very welcoming experience, but it keeps you very alert. When you get there at 8 in the morning and they're there until 6 o'clock at night when it's finally done, or 7.
Yeah. Do you find that having done the Letterman show, and you guys have obviously been successful in a lot of ways, but one of the guys who works here, Rob, is the drummer for the Red Walls, and he said that until that happened, like his mom and his friends who were into music didn't really get the fact that they were sort of getting big.
That's really fun.
Anything like that?
Absolutely. It's the one thing. It's funny because everybody asks us about how did Letterman change things for you, and really it didn't change anything on a professional level for us. It's not like we saw a tremendous spike in our popularity or album sales or anything. But what it did most certainly was like legitimize what we do in the eyes of like family. That like, oh, you're in a band, and then you play Letterman. It's like, oh, you're in a band. It's like a capital B. So. That's always good because they're a tremendous support base, and it's kind of nice because it is our living. It's what we do. But it especially means a lot to have our families understand that it's really a living. It's really what we do.
Yeah. You guys moved from Missouri, where you formed this band, to Brooklyn. What's been the best thing about relocating?
Well, I mean, there are definitely some things I miss about being in Missouri, and there's much more of a kind of a carefree aesthetic to living in the middle of Missouri and writing music kind of in your own bubble, and there's no real consequence to kind of falling on your face all the time. And I think that really helped us figure out kind of who we were as a band, and then once we kind of got that under our belt, the next logical step seemed to go, like most bands, just let's see what happens in a larger market with more people and more exposure. And I think moving to Brooklyn and New York overall has been really beneficial because it's just it's opened up our eyes to a lot more possibilities with what we can do as a band, and it's like a legitimate kind of path to follow. And I think that's been like the greatest eye opener, is that there are ways to pursue it and like continually pursue it.
And last question, are you a cat person or a dog person?
Oh, cat person. Well, I have to say, I love both. My family growing up cats and dogs, but I do have a cat in New York, and I miss her so. Abby.
Right.
Abby the Tabby.
Thanks so much for taking the time to do
Sure.
this, and
Thank you.
have a great show.
Thank you. Well, that was painless.